Today is the third anniversary of the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Not the other way around, Donald. And today, the United States joined Russia, this has just happened today, to vote against a UN General Assembly resolution condemning Russia's war against Ukraine in a stunning shift from years of U.S. policy. So now we are with Russia saying Ukraine is this is now crazy. I ask every episode, does the good outweigh the bad with Trump? Because there are some good things that he's done, for sure. You know, our federal budget is bloated and the border needed needed to be declared an emergency. We needed to shut that down. The gender ideology, we've gone on with this forever. Okay, there's lots of things that he did that are good. But the outrage here is real. I mean, while asserting that Ukraine started the war, Trump calls Zelensky a dictator without elections, while at the same time he's courting Lord Farquaad there, Vladimir Putin, as a new business partner, I assume on our behalf. I mean, I guess we're all going to benefit from the great deals, huge deals, that we do with Vlad. My friends, we are so weary, but also somewhat impressed from the flurry of Trump activity from day one back in the Oval Office, that we either don't have time or energy to be correctly outraged by abandoning Ukraine. I mean, Zelensky a dictator? A notably insane comment. Putin, who's been president for 25 years and claims a salary of $140,000, but according to Fortune magazine and every one of our instincts is actually worth $200 billion. He's had his opponents silenced or killed. Long live Navalny. He's not the despot, authoritarian mafia boss that we absolutely know he is. What? That topless, preening little peachick didn't brazenly invade Ukraine and sacrifice hundreds of thousands of lives. He didn't permanently imprison our teachers, writers, and basketball players for dime bags of weed. I mean, Trump told me almost 20 years ago when the cameras had stopped rolling and I had just pressed him on his assertions that The Apprentice was number one on television, the number one show. Billy, it's number one. He said, Billy, do not worry. Hey, don't worry about all that. People don't care. They don't care. You just tell them and they believe you. Okay, Ukraine started the war. They'll believe that. Zelensky is a dictator. They'll believe that. Trump kept repeating that keep this in mind, he kept repeating that he rightfully won the re-election in 2020. At that time, 55% of Republicans believed it. Now, 69% of Republicans believe that. Currently, 6% of bona fide idiots believe Ukraine started the war. What will this be in 4 years? 6% now? Will it be 16? Will it be 20? Will it be 30% of people thinking Ukraine, if you just say it enough, they're going to believe it? Remember, he said this to me. He said it to me straight. Don't worry. You just tell them and they believe you. And it is now on the biggest stage. So on the Ukraine front, Donald makes a legitimate point. Let's give him some, I believe, about the hundreds of billions of dollars that we've given in aid for, not much tangible in return. But to say that we, maybe the only thing we can say is we saved Europe again for all that money. But look, Europe definitely needs to pay more. I love Trump says, there's a big, beautiful ocean that separates us. What do we care about Russia? I mean, it's Europe's problem. It can't be Europe's problem. We need them. They are our allies. We will need them again. The hysterical Nellie Bowles. Folks, do you subscribe to the Free Press? Bari Weiss, her publication, she's the founder and editor-in-chief. Her wife, Nellie Bowles, both of them used to work at the New York Times, and before they got fired, they left, and they've started the Free Press, which is to me, it's the only seriously centrist publication out there. I can trust them, right? Because I'm definitely not a super righty, and I'm not a super lefty. I'm kind of bouncing in that middle, where I think the rest of us are too, by the way. I think we're all centrist. The problem is we're just not radical centrists. We need to get radical. More on that in a second. But Nellie Bowles wrote about the war. It's a war that all smart people said would end quickly. A war that has dragged on for years as young men slaughter each other over honestly some pretty miserable land. How blunt. And this about the European leaders not pulling their weight. They are smart, lazy people who take 3 months of vacation every year and come back only to regulate our companies and call us capitalist trash before going on another vacation. Yeah, they need to pay up. I wonder what Melania of Slovenia feels about us abandoning Ukraine and essentially Europe. We're going to need our allies in Europe one day, and they will remember this. He's left Ukraine out of discussions about its future. None of this egregious BS is about anything other than paying back Zelensky for not launching a corruption investigation into Joe Biden years ago. Remember, after the perfect call, and Donald insisted that he do. Take a look into Joe Biden in 2019. Well, Trump's a lot of debatable things, but one thing that's not debatable is he is vengeful, very vengeful. We know this. And now Zelensky, he says, is a failed B-level comedian. Now listen, when he is vengeful, he is funny. He said he failed B-level comedian masquerading as a duly elected president. I'm aware elections have been suspended in Ukraine due to the fact that the country is under attack. But Zelensky does have an approval rating of about 57% last we checked, not 4%, as Donald says. Quick reminder on the domestic front regarding Trump, reclaiming the southern border, attacking government waste, ending divisive and racist DEI policies, and ushering back a meritocracy. These are good things, right? It's important when you just to lay out that an honest landscape. But here's what sucks. He has subverted the rule of law to achieve his ends. Federal judges and U.S. attorneys can't keep up. 2 of them resigned honorably in New York, and 6 staff members. When the Justice Department said, drop your investigation into the mayor of New York, Eric Adams, who had his hand out with the Turkish government trying to get donations. And look, something that needs to be looked at. They quit. But all of Trump's overreach is not just the king's fault. It's the fault of the more centrist, supposedly level-headed leaders of the party. I think of John Thune, the Senate Majority Leader. Mike Johnson, right? Speaker of the House. Are you guys beholden to power or the people? To what's right or what's popular at the moment in time? You will be remembered for what you did not do, what you did not say when you were needed. And if you need enticement to resist what is short-sighted and wrong, be aware of what Nellie Bowles' wife, the aforementioned editor-in-chief of the Free Press, Bari Weiss, just wrote over the weekend. If a political movement does not police its ranks, does not draw lines, if it neglects to protect its borders, if it does not defend its sacred values, it cannot long endure. The Democrats just imploded all over the place because of this. So much so that Donald Trump won the popular vote, the first Republican president to do that since George W. in 2004. The far, far left, with all of its pronouns and protests, eradicated the center left. Elizabeth Warren, Kamala, AOC, Ilhan Omar eclipsed normal-thinking people like Andy Beshear, the governor of Kentucky, Josh Shapiro, the governor of Pennsylvania, J.B. Pritzker, the governor of Illinois, Bill Clinton, even Hillary Clinton. And they let it happen, even though they disagreed. They knew the far left was crazy, but they let it happen because they were scared to buck the movement and lose the in crowd. Right? You can see it right now. Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, he's like, oh, man, who's up for re-election? We got to be careful how we handle this. How about just resolve? How about just what you believe? Right? How about principle? The Republicans are pumped and primed to repeat the same mistake. It's amazing how quickly things happen, too. The far, far right will eclipse the right center. If those moderate normies don't stand up for our collective foundational principles. Mike, John Thune, stand up for the belief in the inalienable rights of each individual, that we are all created in the image of God, And that it is that and not our ethnicity or our IQ score that gives us our worth and that makes us all equal. These are the words of Bari Weiss. I'm still talking about her article. It is a rejection of mob violence. It is the view that the West is good and that America is good and that we deserve our heroes along with our whole complex history. Yeah, it's a mess, but we deserve to have them. Those values are not left and they're not right. In our recent election, did the moderates and the centrists stand up and take back control from the crazy left and what Kamala was trying to do? Or did they just choose the lesser evil? I got to say, I like Trump. I mean, I like Trump personally. I like him. I think he's funny as can be. He was maybe the greatest reality television host. I mean, Snooki was up there, but Trump was good, really good. Remember, they extended that boardroom to like almost the whole show because he was so good at pitting former playmates against, reality TV stars in fights over lemonade sales on Fifth Avenue. Nobody could pit a fight like him. I always liked him. Still do. I mean, if I was with him, I'd laugh if he didn't, trash me first on Twitter. But his Achilles heel is his ego. I mean, his narcissism, his need to humiliate. And he cares about his legacy of having made America really rich, like him, but with not much regard for the opportunity costs. Like, what are the costs of abandoning Ukraine, of joining Russia in the UN Security Council, of declaring Zelensky a dictator? Like, what is going on? I mean, it's unbelievable. Look at the German elections that just took place. On top, the Christian Democratic Union, the CDU, with their leader, the new chancellor-to-be, Friedrich Merz. He wins 28.5%. Basically, the MAGA movement, okay, so that's the center-right, okay? The Germany's center-right center party. That's good, right? But right behind them, for the first time ever, is the AfD, Alternative for Germany, Alice Weidel, 20%. And then the center-left people, 16.5%. It has always been the right centers and the left centers in Germany. Never has there been a third party to break into those ranks. And now they got the second amount of votes. They got 20%, which is unbelievable. So what people in Germany basically said is, we want the conservative agenda, we want these changes, but we don't want the leader. So they're giving the right center, Friedrich Merz, a chance to say, okay, I hope you heard us. We like some of the things that these far, far right people are talking about. Enact them. And really that boils mostly down for them to immigration and energy. But, we want to make our own. We want to stop, the idea of buying Russian oil was a huge mistake that Angela Merkel made years ago and stuck with it. And immigration, legal and illegal, stop. We need to build our own country, but we're going to give this level-headed right centrist guy the chance to do it. That's what Germany just said. So I don't know if it's a foreshadowing, but I'm telling you, all the good stuff that the Trumpster's doing, he's now starting to do some really, really damaging, short-sighted stuff. Okay, so we get rich off deals with Russia. We are fracturing relationships and allies that we need. So when is the center going to stand up? The radical center, right? It can't just be boring. The middle is by definition boring. But a radical middle that says enough, you crazies on the left, you crazies on the right. You know what I'm saying? Steve, my guy, what's going on, fellas?
Yeah, so at JCPH is saying, is Don going really insane now with these Ukraine comments? Do you think this is, by far too much, or is it just more Don, basically?
That's from the chat on our YouTube right there. So, by the way, fire away anytime. We are totally live here on YouTube and on TuneIn. Don's a provocateur. I mean, we know that. He loves to poke the bear. He loves to create. Everything's a show. What happened after the inauguration? What's the first thing he did? Invite all the cameras into the Oval Office and do a stand-up comedy act, an improv act, while signing all kinds of executive orders. Has he lost his mind? No, but he's definitely, I don't think, but he's surrounded himself. Remember the first administration, There were all kinds of experienced Republicans. They convinced Donald to have some experienced, Bush people and, establishment people. Basically, they wanted them in there to keep Don from being his worst self. This time, Don went way out of his way to make sure that those people aren't there, that only the real loyalists are there. Like Marco Rubio is the Secretary of State. But Donald's, real estate buddy, Steve Witkoff, is actually the effective Secretary of State. Witkoff is cutting all the deals. I'm not saying he's, he might be good. In some respects, I've seen him do some good things. But, that's what happened. He's now, he's done it by design, and, there's reason to be nervous about it, for sure. Anyway, 3 years since that invasion, let's all just agree that Russia is the aggressor and that Putin is Lord Farquaad from Shrek. When they take him off horseback, they have to pull him out of his boots and they stand him down, and that he is a despot and a dictator and an authoritarian. And little Zelensky, remember how supportive we were of little Zelensky? Like, he said, I don't want to ride. We offered to take him out of there and bring him to a safe place when Russia attacked. He said, I'm going to stay here in his green T-shirt. He said, I'm staying. I don't need a ride. I need ammunition. It was one of the great lines. Anyway, let's see where this goes, but hopefully some smart people will get involved here, and I'll keep talking too.